Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and welcome back to another episode of Mario's Minute. For those who do not know, this here is the second podcast I do. My main podcast, Mod Chat, is a little more tightly edited, a little more organized, and that's where I talk about things in the world of video game modding and video game console modding as a whole. However, this is not that. This here is Mario's Minute, like I said, my second podcast in which I come on here and I talk to you all about really wherever the hell I want to. Sometimes I have a guest on, sometimes I don't. I was kind of trying to do it, every other month, but you know what? We'll just get guests on now when we can. Let's just say that. It is available in two different variants though. First of all, it is available in a video visual form here on the Mr. Mario 2011 YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey channels. It is also available on many podcasting platforms like an actual podcast in an audio only form. So you can take it around and listen to it wherever the hell you want to. Simply look up Mario's Minute in your favorite podcasting app, host, provider, or platform, and you should hopefully be able to find it. I know it's not available on all of them, but it is available on most of them. Either way, like I said here, this is where I just come on here, I talk about whatever the hell I want to. I try and have a guest on at times, but I'm just going to say, I was trying to cycle it out every other month, but I've gone a few months here solo, and it's not like this is just going to stay a solo episode, but how about this? Whenever we get a guest on, we'll get a guest on. Let's just go ahead and do that. I'm going to take the brunt and the blame on that, though. That's on me, at least, the planning, organizing, and all that. But sometimes I just got to sit down and I just got to make an episode, and I can do that on my own time, and I might not be able to get someone else in that time. We'll just put it like that. I'm not really sure 100% what we're going to be going into with this episode here. I have a little bit of an outline and a few things here, but it's October. At least October is a great month. I love the spooky season. I love when it gets to fall. I love when things get a little cooler there, and also costumes are pretty cool. I think this was probably I haven't really done any explicit cosplay, I would say. No, I think the closest I ever did was I ended up probably a few weeks before Halloween. I was test driving one of my costumes. This was several years ago. I think this was 2019, I want to say, and I played as Mr. Robot. I actually, I was kind of looking and I was kind of thinking of some Halloween moments there, because I remember being a kid, of course, dressing up, getting candy and all that stuff, and that was always fun. You all know the Scream mask, the iconic Scream mask, and then the funny variant one that had the tongue sticking out and everything from Scary Movie. That was one of my favorite costumes I had. I wore that so much one year. This is when I was in 6th grade. Got a lot of candy with that. There was one time I even just went to a mall and I was just wearing the mask, and it had a little heart type thing as well too. When you squeeze this heart, blood just comes from the top and just comes down. Quick story on that. I made a kid cry with that one time. I think it's funny. My parents were chill. They were kind of just letting me do this here, but I kind of just want to run around this city with a mask. One day they're like, okay, cool, you can do it. And we were just visiting. And I remember I went to the mall. I was wearing this. I didn't really get any bad looks. I guess it was a different time then, but people thought it was funny. People thought it was cool. But I just remember I was, we were all about to leave. I was waiting outside of the restroom and waiting a few minutes, and I was just standing up against the wall. I had the mask on, and there were two kids. One was older, one was younger, but they were siblings. And the older one was in a store. Now, he was in a store he was probably a little too young for, but he was still there regardless. And his kid brother was on the outside there, and there was glass, so you could see what was going on inside the store. So the kid brother starts knocking and everything, and then the older one, he's kind of knocking back, being a good brother, but he ends up looking at me, right? And when he looks at me, I end up squeezing this heart. And, the blood just goes down my mask, right? And he thought it was really cool. So he's tapping on the glass and then pointing at me. Tapping on the glass, pointing at me, trying to get his little brother to look at this, right? And his little brother turns around and looks. And me being, 12 at the time, I squeeze this thing. Blood comes out. and this kid just starts crying. That was the only negative reaction I got from it here, which I can understand because this kid was very young, did not expect it. And, they were cool about it. Like, the older brother was kind of like, oh, crap, okay, he's upset. So, like, he came out and everything, but there was, like, no, like, bad feeling or anything there. Outside of that, I can understand why it would be scary, though. But, that's been fun. I haven't done all too much dress up in recent years, though. Occasionally it's kind of like when I feel like doing it, I'll do it like that. Like I said with Mr. Robot, I ended up going because this is years ago. I was watching the series, kind of rewatching a bit of it. I still never finished it, but I've like started it like 3 times. I know that should be a crime right there. But yeah, I ended up going as Mr. Robot, like Christian Slater, and that was it was a really cool, but it was also at the same time a really easy costume to do. Now I'm just remembering these as I'm talking about them. I think probably a few years prior, I want to say it was 2 or 3 years prior, I went as Ed for Halloween. That was when I was working in an office. Like, we had some, Halloween parties and stuff. So that was my motivation for like dressing up as an adult there. But yeah, no, the whole like Christian Slater outfit was pretty cool. It was funny because it's like, if you look at it, it's all stuff that's not too hard to get, right? I end up having to get a like a Mr. Robot badge, but it's just kind of like a old greenish hat, an equivalent jacket like that as well too, a flannel button-up shirt, and a plain gray shirt, and some glasses. But then I remember I was looking around, I was like, I don't have a hat like this, so I got to get a hat. I got to get the jacket. Okay, like I was able to find a pretty matching jacket. I had to end up buying a patch. I ironed the patch on. But then even like, I think the flannel, I had just gotten a flannel shirt, so because I didn't have any for a bit. And then the gray shirt, the basic gray shirt, I did not have that. Like, just a completely basic gray shirt, I did not have it. So I ended up having to go to, was it Michael's? I want to say it was a craft shop. It was either Michael's or it was Hobby Lobby, where, they have just those plain shirts for really cheap. So I grabbed it from there. That was a really fun one. The most recent one I did, though, this was 2 years ago, I want to say. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. I ended up kind of making my own outfit. Essentially I went as, and I remember I posted this up on social media as well too. I ended up going as a undead Circuit City installer. Now just a little bit of a warning, this might get a little dark, but this is kind of how I made it up, right? So I have just this like fascination with Circuit City. I've been to the shop a few times when I was younger. I didn't have one in the city I grew up though. And then I didn't go to it all too often. And then by the time I actually like could, it was starting to go out of business. And that's when, Best Buy was taken over. However, when it came to Circuit City, a lot of my research has really been just like in the past, like now, like looking back at it in the past here. And like whenever I see like one of those iconic like buildings that used to be Circuit City, or even like a Circuit City building that is, just abandoned now, I absolutely love checking out, love to see like the little like accents and things that are like that signify it. So, if you can go around the back and see like where the road shop was, sometimes you can still see some like imprinting and painting and such there. It's really cool. At least I think it's cool. I have these weird interests, right? So I ended up having this idea, and it came out of thin air. I don't even know why or how I thought of this, but I wanted to be an undead Circuit City road shop car audio installer. And my story was that I was a audio installer like in the audio bay for the Circuit City Road Shop, and then I got news that we were going to be shutting down nationwide. But I decided that I would rather die as opposed to work for a competitor such as Best Buy. So during my last install, I decided to really make it my last by, going out with it as well. And then somehow I end up coming back to life. So I was zombified. So I ended up like, I had to ask a few people. It was funny. Like, I had to ask like 2 or 3 people I knew who used to work at Circuit City, and I kind of looked it up. I had to be like, hey, what was the outfit that they wore like in the road shop? And it was essentially, from what I understood, because like at Circuit City you had to have a little more of a you had to have a little more of a outfit, like just, being on the sales floor and such. But road shops, since you're in cars, since you're going to be like getting under the car or getting under the seats and, ripping things apart and all that, they were a little more lax. So there was a red button-up shirt that they had that showed it was like Circuit City Road Shop. It showed that logo there in a few places. But for the most part, you could just wear like some nice shorts and you could wear like cargo shorts or maybe like an equivalent something else, but you could wear shorts and then just wear like sneakers, and that was okay. So I ended up on eBay. I found brand new, like dead stock road shop shirts. I don't know how or where they got them from, and they were one size too big for me, but it's looking specifically for a kind of like branding and shop and such that hasn't existed in years, so I can't really be too picky with it. And it was really like, the price was not bad either, so I ended up getting one of those. I didn't even know it was brand new until I got it in the mail, and I remember like I went over to a friend's place and I showed them and I opened it up, and after I opened it I was like, wait a minute, that was brand new. And they're like, yeah, dude, that was where do you get a brand new Circuit City shirt? I'm like, eBay. And they were just shocked that you could get it there. But I was like, that was a brand new shirt and it looked fine, but it had all the creases. I was like, yeah, I definitely got to wash this. So what happened was I ended up wearing that, and then my girlfriend assisted me with this. So I was able to put the outfit together. The only thing I had to buy for the actual outfit itself was the shirt, obviously. But I ended up getting that. I was able to wear everything. Then I ended up doing zombie makeup, but I didn't really do it myself. My girlfriend has done makeup infinitely more times than I have, so I let her be the expert on there. We end up having to buy a zombie makeup kit, so she like got it all over my face and such. And then I remember like we're in the bathroom because we went to a party to do this, but we brought the stuff over and then we did the makeup when we were in the bathroom there. And she's helped me out with it. And there was this spray bottle. And she's like, oh, okay, I guess this is supposed to be blood. She sprayed it on my face. And she's like, yo. And then she sprayed it 2 more times. She's like, wait, I think I overdid the spray. And I was like, what does that mean? What are you talking about? And she's like, no, it's fine. It just, you look like, it looks really cool, but you look disgusting. But it looks really cool at the same time. So I ended up getting this sprayed on me, so it definitely looked like I was undead walking around. I kind of like undid my shirt in a certain way, and then I also had, from my old amp install in my old car, I had some like RCA and like speaker wire and all that, so I ended up taking some of that and I kind of just like put it around my neck. And then I also had some like grounding wire that was used for that too. I actually ended up pulling out my soldering iron for this. I soldered the 2 ends of the wire together and kind of just like tied it around one of my arms. So it was I will say it was a pretty cool outfit. And like for me, it was like not too much effort to do it all. And I even got to solder. I got to have, a little bit of like the techie nerd side of it as well too. So I was really happy with it. Girlfriend was happy with it. Like everybody thought it was pretty cool. We even had one of the best accidents happen right there. I will say I don't have the best eyesight, so I have glasses and I have contacts. I don't wear them at the same time. My eyesight is, thank goodness, not that bad. But I was wearing contacts that night, and I think I ended up I accidentally end up touching one of my eyes, and then I didn't really realize it for the rest of the night. But the entire night, one of my contacts was red from the makeup there. And I didn't realize it until I took out my contacts at the end of the night, and I was like, yo, that is cool. That was a nice thing. So I had this like mismatching eye thing going on. So it was kind of just like all of these accidents kind of just like perfectly merged and happened together there. I remember that party I went to as well, because this wasn't for anything like corporate or anything, but it was just like a friend was hosting a Halloween get-together. We also ended up doing a murder mystery type thing. And it was funny because like we didn't know that I ended up being the killer of this story until the very end when it was revealed. And like the whole time leading up, they were like, people would point at me and they're just like, dude, it's him. Look at his face. Look at his face. Look at his face. And then by the end, I was like, yeah, you can't trust this face. Yeah, you could never trust this face here. So in the end, the dude who ended up looking the most vicious was the killer of this story here. It was funny to see that. But there's been a few others there. I think another good one I did was, I remember this was back in college. I've told this story before on the channel, but I'll go ahead and tell it again because why the heck not? So this was back in, I want to say, my freshman year of college. One of my friends somehow, she had done a lot more cosplay than me, but somehow we got the idea. I don't know where it came up or how, but we got the idea of going as Cosmo and Wanda, like the Fairly Odd Parents from the show, The Fairly Odd Parents. Now, Cosmo was thankfully it was a really easy cosplay for both of us to pull off. But like Cosmo for me was super easy because it's just like dress shoes, black dress pants, a white dress shirt that's buttoned up, black tie, and then that's about it. And then my friend was really good with crafts and such, so she ended up making the floating crowns. She ended up buying some hairspray as well too, just hair coloring spray. So I had to spray her hair pink, she sprayed mine green, and then she also ended up making the wands, which were like really easy for her to make. So she was more creative than me, thankfully, so she was able to handle those aspects of it. But it was great because she ended up coming over. We ended up setting up our costumes and everything, and then once we did, got some pictures taken, and then we ended up going to see a midnight of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Now, she's done it, I think. Or no, she had seen it, but she never went to one. I was the one who I'd never seen it before. I had never gone to it. I'm not going to spoil it for you all, right? But I will say, if you're a little bit open to your media consumption, if you want something that is, kind of timely and unique for this time of year, if you can go to a Rocky Horror Picture Show midnight showing, take the opportunity to do so. I will say that. And if you can go in blind, it's even better. You're going to be in for a little bit of a shock. But we end up doing that because they also end up having a little bit of a costume contest there. Now, there's, of course, always people who are going to go there being dressed up as the actors and actresses, but you could also go there and be whatever you want to. And you see a lot when you go there. Now, we felt kind of out of place, I would say, because we ended up being debate, it's not even a debate. We were like the cutest ones out of everyone there. And for anybody who thinks that's an odd descriptor, I have this little tidbit to prove it, right? So we end up going up on stage, and it's funny because I was fine, right? But my friend, she was one of those people, she's like really loud, extroverted, but when you put her in front of a crowd, she gets so nervous. So she was there, she's next to me, and like the MC, she loved to be a smartass, right? And that's kind of some of the theme of at least this one that we went to. So it was very expected. It was funny. But she was, of course, just like pushing people down. One of them that was disappointing, there was one person who went as, it wasn't Shell, it was Faith from Mirror's Edge. And I remember my friend and I were like, yo, that's so cool. She's going as Faith. And the MC looked at her. She's like, yeah, no, you're done. You're down. Get off the stage. We're like, what? You got rid of Faith already? Dang, have some faith. So we're standing there. So she's, just like kind of like laying into everyone. And then she sees us two and she's like, you're staying here. And she just moves on. And, it goes in stages, right? So then she pretty much said, hey, if I talk to you, if I said anything to you, please get off the stage. And I'm like, oh, she talked to us. So I start getting off the stage and she's like, no. Where are you going? I was like, oh, she's like, no, you're not getting off the stage. You're staying here. So there wasn't any official winner that was here. But I think it was us two and one other person. We were the last 3 people. I was about to say 2, but we were the last 3 people on stage because ours was like, I guess you could say kind of like a couple's costume, I suppose. But we were the last people on stage, and she ended up giving us some awards. I don't remember what the other person got, but I ended up getting this really awesome lamp, which ended up looking like one of those really old reel cameras that you would record films with. And I remember my friend was just like, dude, you love recording, you love making videos, you love all this stuff. Just like this is so obviously for you. Just no hard feelings. I don't need it, but you go ahead and take this award. And I was like, awesome, cool, I'll take it. And I think eventually I donated it, but I did use it for several years because it was a really cool prop. But as a lamp, it wasn't really the best lamp. Point being, though, the reason why I know we pretty much shut this thing down is because the MC, she's going around to everyone, and she comes up to us and she says, okay, and who are you all? And I said, I'm Cosmo. My friend said, I'm Wanda. And the MC says, these are the Fairly Odd Parents. And the entire auditorium just goes, aww. And then they all start clapping. And I think I I've been to several. I really don't. I have this recollection of going to one of these events before, and I think this was the first one. I think there was just a lot that happened at that. But point is, I've been to several of these midnight showings of Rocky Horror Picture Show. I haven't been to one since college, but I went to like 2 or 3 of them, and that was the only time I've ever seen like such a cute, wholesome moment like that. So I remember like there, I was kind of just like, yeah, we shut this thing down. Okay, cool. So that was a nice feeling at least. Aside from that, the other thing that I guess when it comes to like dress up and stuff, my girlfriend has enjoyed that quite a bit, and there's been a couple times she has cosplayed as well too. Now it hasn't been explicitly for Halloween, but it ended up being like right before, like around this time, there were some events we went to. We didn't do anything this year. Yeah, no, this year we're not dressing up or anything, but 2 years ago she ended up going as Yor from Spy Family. And last year, she ended up going as Tifa from, of course, Final Fantasy VII. She got a lot of compliments on the both of them, and it was events that we ended up going to. Now, when she went as Yor, it was funny because she was kind of like, hey, is there going to be like, she wanted to go, but she's like, is there going to be like a lot? I don't know if there's going to be a lot of like anime costumes here. And I was like, I mean, just go. Like, I've been to this thing before. People dress up as whatever. It's like, I've seen people dress up in like Game of Thrones setups, and that wasn't like topical for the event that we were going to, but people did that. And she just wasn't prepared for how much attention was coming through. And it wasn't bad. It was all good. But there was a lot of, like, everywhere she went, it was like, oh, excuse me, Yor. Sorry, Yor. Oh, sorry, Yor. Hey, my bad, Yor. Oh, I love your Yor. Hey, Yor. Like, it was constant like that. The other pretty common comments were people were asking me why I didn't go as Lloyd or why I didn't dress up. And I was just, I didn't have a good excuse, but like my excuse is literally, I'm like, I haven't watched the anime yet. And they're like, you haven't watched? I'm like, I know. I watched it now. I'm caught up. Spy Family is one of my favorite animes. I absolutely love it. But no, she ended up doing really, like, she killed that one. That one was a little unexpected, just because of like, I guess she was like the only Yor at this event, but we just didn't expect that it was going to get such positive reception. And then even at the end, it was really cute, right? There was this mom that came up to us, and there were 2 girls with her, and they were probably in like maybe late elementary or middle school. Let's just say they were in like middle school, right? And she was like, excuse me, my daughter's a little too shy, but she really wanted to get a photo of you. Is that okay? And my girlfriend was like, yeah, of course. And there were 2 girls there. One of them ended up doing a cosplay from Demon Slayer, and the other one was just a friend there for moral support. And she was saying, yeah, no, I'm really happy to see this because my daughter really wanted to dress up, but she was unsure, and she had this outfit, and she spent so much time working on it, and she was so proud of it. But then she was like kind of embarrassed, and she didn't really want to wear it, and she almost didn't wear it because she was thinking like, what if nobody else is dressed up? And I told her, I said, just wear it. There's going to be other people there. So it's really nice seeing other people in outfits like this. So yeah, no, I'm sure she got a nice confidence boost there, but they all got a photo together. And then last year we went to the same event, and she ended up going as Tifa, which like she ended up killing that one as well too. Like everybody was able to recognize it. She got a lot of requests for photos on that as well. The only thing was that I didn't even, because it's like I've played Final Fantasy, but I've never really like paid as much attention to like the outfits, I would say, until then. There is a lot of leather there. Like if you're going to cosplay as Tifa, there's a lot of leather. So like where we went, it was really dusty, and it was outside. So not only like she's wearing all this black leather, and then it's like just like getting dirty and dusted and all that stuff. But I remember like by the time she went to the car, she just starts like taking off the leather, like just like the leather off her arms and all that. And she was just yelling because it was like so stuck to her. And we were laughing. And then by the time she got it off, she's like, okay, I can't do the Tifa thing again. I can't do this. Because it just, from what I understand, it wasn't really the most comfortable cosplay. but looks wise, she did pretty damn well with it. So while we're not as like consistent with our costuming up and cosplay and all that stuff, we do love it. We do love it quite a bit in this household. I'm not sure if you all like listeners, if you're going to be dressing up, if you're going to do anything, but I mean, if you have any like standout like costumes that you've done, some of your favorites or some of your favorites that you've seen like loved ones do or friends or whatever, I'd be interested in hearing about some of that. So one of the other things that I do love about the season here is of course the games. Like, love me some spooky video games, why not? I love the coolness, like kind of it getting darker earlier, like a good excuse to stay inside. And even if I go out, I'm not sweating a ton or anything, so that's really nice around the fall. So I think some of the standout games are definitely Silent Hill 2, of course. Love the Silent Hill games, but Silent Hill 2 is just wonderful. I know a friend of the show here, MVG, I know he said a few times that I think his tradition, I don't know if he still does. I hope he does. I hope he does, man. But I know his tradition for a while was he said he would play the original PS2 version of Silent Hill 2 on Halloween, and it had the 60 frame per second cutscenes and everything, so now that it seems like every single year there's better ways of playing PS2 games, I'm sure it's just better like every single time you go through that. Resident Evil, of course, is another fantastic one to play through. I'm just thinking like, I don't know, for some reason I really associate Resident Evil like 2 and 3 with this. I think just like the creepy scene and all, but like 3 specifically, I kind of really associate with that. Medieval, like even though it's not really as much of a horror game, it's, of course, like more of a comedy, like action, adventure, slasher game. Always get the vibe from there, but probably I would say my favorite Halloween moment, like my favorite Halloween game, and this is because of this, I still have this game. I will not sell it. It is Until Dawn. Now, I end up getting Until Dawn on the PS4, not the PS5 re-release. I'm talking about the PS4. Until Dawn, I end up getting it in 2015 on launch. I was going into it thinking it was going to be okay at best, right? And when I tell you, it ended up being one of my favorite interactive movie games. I really mean that wholeheartedly. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it ended up being extremely good, and I really liked it. It's one of the few games I actually bothered to platinum. I platinumed it within a week, and a few months later, it was that year in 2015, one of my best friends, he ended up getting a house. So we ended up doing a little bit of a Halloween multi-day, multi-evening get-together where we just played through Until Dawn. Now, it was myself, him, and another one of my friends. And I think for 3 nights straight, the week of Halloween, when we were done with like work and class and all that stuff, because I was still in college at the time, my friend had already graduated who had the house. He had already graduated and he was working. And then our third friend, she was doing both. She was working and she was in college. So we kind of more had to wait for her to be done. But what we would do every evening for like 3 nights is we would go over to his place. We'd have some food set up. So we would eat food. And then we just got on the couch and we played through this game. Now, I already played it and I got the platinum on this game. So I was like, I already know everything. And even with that playthrough, there was one thing that happened. I'm not going to spoil it, but there was one thing that happened that actually surprised me because I did not know you could do this thing during that playthrough. My other friend, she's not much of a gamer, so trusting her with the controller wouldn't have been good. So my friend who had the house, he was the one who ended up playing, and he didn't mind because he's like, well, the game is cool, and he gets to play the game for free, essentially, because I was the one who paid for it. Now, this ended up being great because I used to be, like when I was younger, I used to be the kid where if I saw something already, like a movie, and then I was watching with a friend who never saw it, I'd be like, oh wait for this. Oh, this scene's so funny. Oh, this, but it's so tempting to do that. I swear it's so tempting to still do that, but I don't do it anymore. I haven't done it in a long time. And even back then, I didn't do it. So I was just on the couch silent for the most part. And even my friends at the end, they were like, dude, like, seriously, thank you. Like that, like you helped make the experience better. Like not only you brought over the game, but you didn't do any of that spoiler. So like we legitimately did not know what was going to happen next. And I was like, I know, because I played this game several times and I wanted you all to experience it like completely blind on there. So yeah, I would say like during that time, and that was I was going through some rough stuff at that time too. So really just being able to go there every night, hang out with friends and like just enjoy this game, like it was incredibly enjoyable. We ended up even doing a little reprise of that where when the Until Dawn film ended up coming out earlier this year, we ended up all going to the theater together and we watched it. My two friends, they liked it a lot more than I did. I'll be honest, I wasn't really that big of a fan of the film. But I kind of kept it more to myself because I just also don't want to be the type of person who's just sitting there complaining about it. I will say though, now thinking about it, it's odd that they waited so long to release it. Like, I feel like that was a pretty big missed opportunity because they released the Until Dawn film like in theaters. They released it earlier this year, like quarter 1 or quarter 2 of this year, not even anywhere close to Halloween, not even quarter 3. They didn't even release it quarter 3 of this year. So I don't know what they're doing over there. But that's, I would say, playing Until Dawn with my friends about, good lord, I'm going to make them feel old. Playing that 10 years ago with them, that is probably my favorite Halloween gaming memory. I'm not sure if you all have any like that, but, let me know. One thing I did want to talk about, which is spooky in a different guard, is Microsoft. So pretty topical, I guess, coming off of the whole Sony aspect there. With, even though they might not release, Sony Pictures not releasing Until Dawn at the right time, in my opinion. They're at least not doing whatever the hell Microsoft is doing, which is kind of bringing up the question: what is Microsoft doing? Now, coming from someone where if you follow the channel, you all have seen I don't really mess around that much with the current gen of systems. 8th gen, I dabble in a bit. Like, I have a lot of love for the Switch. The PS4 is an enjoyable system and in many ways I think is better than the PS5, mainly with the UI and the interface and everything there. And I say that because real quick, people say it's like, hey, you'll get used to it. It's okay. No, I've had the PS5 for 4 years at this point. And whenever I go back to use my PS4 for even like 20 minutes, I go on there and I'm like, this UI makes sense. The button presses make sense. Everything here makes sense to me. This is peak right here. Some people say PS3's X and B is peak. It's not that it's bad. It's that PS3 put everything in there. Because as they advertise, the PS3 was the system that only does everything. So it needed a system UI to match that. PS4, they scaled it back, but it was clean, it was snappy, it worked, like it was all good there. PS5 feels like on the UI, they updated it just for the sake of updating it. Because they had to update it because it was a new system. That was it. But just some of the intuitiveness, the features and all that on there, I'm like, no, because I can go back to the PS4 and it just makes sense, is what I'm saying. The PS5, it still has questionable elements to me. Also, of course, the PS4 has themes. Like, it has, like, actual themes. It's not like, now we have themes, question mark, on the PS5. You can like set it to be themed of like, the PlayStation 1, 2, 3, or 4. But even then they're paltry in comparison to what we had on the PlayStation 4. Like, seriously, just look it up. Look up PS4 themes and look up PS5 themes, and you can see a vast difference in quality and texture and everything there. Sorry, I'm just going into the whole Sony thing here. Trying to get back to Microsoft at least. Microsoft, I really haven't messed around with as much as I would have liked to ever since the Xbox One days. Like, I ended up for the 8th generation, I jumped in with the Xbox One because I ended up getting in order. I got the Xbox One. I would have actually gotten the PS4 at first, but I remember it was there with all the stuff they were doing with E3 and how really like Sony came out as like the pro consumer console at that point. I'm a big believer in vote with your wallet. So I remember I originally pre-ordered the Xbox One, then I canceled it and I pre-ordered the PS4, and then I canceled that when Microsoft decided to roll back a lot of their like policies that people didn't like. Then I ended up pre-ordering the Xbox One, and like I enjoyed it when I got it, but aside from that, I remember that generation, I liked the PS4 a lot more. A few months later, I got the PS4, and then after that, I ended up getting the Wii U, so I had all the systems there. But what I'm saying is, from that time, it just seems like that Microsoft hasn't really been... It's not they haven't tried, it's that I'm just questioning where they're trying at different times there. It seems like they've kind of just lost their identity in many ways ever since the days of the Xbox 360. And you got to realize the Xbox 360, its primary, like its prime years, I would say, were during the 2008 financial crisis and that whole recession, and like around that time, right? The system was around for longer than it needed to be because of, what was going on with the world there. And yet people loved the Xbox 360 so much that even with the high failure rate that it had, people were getting multiple systems, not just returning them to get them fixed up, not paying for fixes on there. They were actually just getting all new systems at times, and they would just like continue to play because they were so hooked into Xbox Live. They were so hooked into the Microsoft and the Xbox ecosystem. There was such fierce brand loyalty there. And I would say, actually, going back, I feel like there was a shift. I remember there was a tonal shift around the time Kinect came out, because that's when Microsoft was trying to do a little too much. Like, I don't know if they were just high on their own farts or what, but it's not that Kinect is bad, it's that it just wasn't great for gaming. The Kinect and the Kinect 2 are both incredibly awesome and impressive pieces of technology, but not necessarily for gaming. They can be fun. They can have extra features. They can bring, extra things that you can enjoy. Like, there's plenty to like about them. But the best and the most impressive and the most useful times I've ever seen the Kinect used have been not related to gaming. I actually see a lot of it used for, like, I used to, at least. I've seen it for security check-ins. I've seen it for GIS type projects. Again, at a hardware level and what it is capable of software-wise, the Kinect, both the 1 and 2, are incredibly impressive pieces of technology. That just doesn't translate very well into gaming. And that's when Microsoft, I felt like they were kind of trying to do too much. Because even then, I remember when the Kinect dashboard came out for the 360, like it was just, the white one there. It came out before Metro Dash, but that like white one there, all of us, like all the people I talked to, we were kind of like, that's weird. It doesn't look as good. I don't like this one as much here. It's too bright. It's white. It's like kind of reminds me of the Wii here. But going to current day now, you had the trudge of the Xbox One and them trying to kind of reclaim their damage and such. And I will say this, a lot of the stuff they were trying to do, like, they had the 24-hour check-in for the DRM. They wanted to eliminate, like, reselling games and all that stuff. And just a lot of like the negative, like the anti-consumer features that were on there, they did end up rolling back, mind you. A lot of that stuff, it really tainted the opinion of it. And I say this because, look, I say this lovingly, right? I've said this several times in this podcast. I say this lovingly. You and I are nerds. The people who are listening to this are nerds. We're a little more in the know, right? But I'm talking about just completely normal people who are completely removed from this. They're not sitting here like in YouTube comments. They're not like listening to a bunch of podcasts or videos or whatever. They're not really researching this as much. Like, I had, as an example, several years into the PS4 and the Xbox One's life cycle, I went to Walmart and there was a guy there who was debating on getting one of the systems. And there was an employee, not just a random person, there was an employee there who was telling him to not get an Xbox One. And the talking points he had for it were the talking points that people had in 2013 when people had an issue with the Xbox One when it was announced there. And I actually went there and I corrected it because I told the guy, I was like, hey, I'm not trying to like get in the way here, but I just want to say, actually, respectfully, you're incorrect on this. I'm not going to tell you which system to get, but all of these points that you're saying about the Xbox One, they were all reversed 3 years ago. But that's only really for people who are in the know. And you see there's people who like, when they negative, here's how it is, right? Negative news travels much faster and much farther than positive news or corrections do. And that's what happened there. I know when the Xbox Series consoles came out, it was definitely, they're good systems, right? And they end up keeping the UI, and they did Game Pass, and Game Pass is, it's been great for consumers, right? But I remember, like, I would look at it, and I still look at it, and I'm just like, not to crap on Game Pass, I'm not saying we should get rid of it, but this kind of cheapens the games, and there's no way this structure is properly profitable for everyone involved here. And from what I've seen, now that we've kind of seen this all come out and such, consumers absolutely love it because, hey, you're paying, well, now up to $30 a month, that increased. You're paying, what, $15, $20, $30 a month to get a library of games just at your fingertips. That's cool if you're a consumer. If you're a game developer, I know there's ways that you can get payment and such on there, and I'm not as up to speed on that, but I know a part of it is a part of it for many games is how many downloads and how much playtime you get on those games, and you kind of get paid accordingly to that. But then at the end of the day, it's like, well, wait a minute, I'm not trying to say feel bad for the ultra mega corporation, but like, how is this profitable for Microsoft? Because consumers are getting a really good deal. Developers, you could debate, are getting a good deal because they're getting visibility, they're getting playtime, they are getting paid. But in turn, now you have a giant audience of people on the Xbox side of house who don't think that you need to pay for games. They don't, because a lot of people, it's why would I pay for a game if I could just pay for Game Pass and I'll play it through there, and I'm going to play this game, I'm going to finish it within 15, 20 hours, and I'm never going to touch it again. Why should I pay for that game when I could just do this through Game Pass? Even just the literal identity crisis of now, this is what Microsoft has been trying to do for the last 10 years, right? This does not surprise me at all. If anything, it surprises me that they haven't pushed this hard earlier. But they're just trying to turn Xbox into a service, which I've talked about on the channel many times. This is not new, but by that I mean they're trying to put Xbox on everything. So that's why they're saying your Xbox is an Xbox, your PC is an Xbox. Now with games no longer being exclusive to the system, your PlayStation is an Xbox, your Switch is an Xbox. They're trying to just get it on everything now, which can be good and bad. It's more just, it kind of gives people this option of, why do I need to buy an Xbox if I could just play my games on anything? And for Microsoft, you got to realize them being a service and a software-centric company ever since the beginning. Ever since the beginning, they've been like that. Microsoft hates handling hardware. They don't want to be in hardware. Microsoft does not want to do hardware. And they had to make a lot of consensus for the Xbox brand. They didn't want to, I mean, it's known. You can go back in history. Microsoft does, I have this belief, but we've seen it as well too. Microsoft did not like Xbox. They did not like the Xbox brand. They did not like having to maintain it, right? But they did it just because they wanted to get into that industry. And now it's kind of so big to the point that they can't really just dump it, but they are obscuring it and they are harming it in several ways that we've seen. I know one of them has been like Game Pass. They've taken a few things off. So now it's like, you're not going to get Call of Duty immediately. You get some other games added on there, but it's also gone up in price from $20 to $30, especially in the current economic situations now. There's a lot of people where they just want to, play their games, and they're like, well, I don't want to pay this much for this here. So there's been a lot of people who are canceling their Game Pass subscriptions, or even just downgrading their Game Pass subscriptions, which I'm of the opinion, I've said this before, vote with your wallet. If you think $30 for the highest tier of Game Pass is too much, then don't pay for it. Just cancel your membership. I'm a big believer in that there. One thing that kept it like that I think really explained this pretty well was Adam Korlick. He talked about this in one of his videos, kind of talking about like, what the hell is Xbox doing? And he had kind of gone over the history of like how they even really came to be with the Xbox brand and such. But I think he put it best, in which he was saying that Xbox cannot survive on its own. Xbox survives with Microsoft. Xbox, for the most part, doesn't gain money. It loses, right? It's very rarely profitable. And even when it is profitable, it's debatable whether that was really actually worth it with all the effort, with all the trouble that got put in there. So when it came down to it, Microsoft was pretty much kind of just writing blank checks for anything Xbox related, it felt like. Until the big Activision merger that happened. And that was so expensive. That's when Microsoft was kind of like, whoa, we're paying how much? hold on. We're paying how much for this? Yeah, let's hold on. Well, what are y'all doing over there exactly? Because we need to. Why are you all spending so much money? You all are just video games. Why are we spending billions? Like, let's talk about this now. And that's when it feels like now they're trying to more squeeze out as much as they can in terms of just profitability there. So raising prices on things. And now we also see it with the Xbox hardware is changing and it is becoming more expensive. This year alone, we've had 2 price increases on the Xbox Series hardware. We're seeing multiple retailers no longer stock it. Costco has stopped stocking Xbox stuff. Do you know how big of a deal that is? Xbox, the last few years, they've clearly not been trying to do physical as much. They've gotten rid of the disk drive on the latest revision of the Series X, from what I can remember. The Series S did not have a disk drive at all to begin with, and even games that were coming on disk, many times the disk was just a key, and it didn't have the data. You had to actually download the data, and even then, this is from a few years ago, like around the time Starfield was coming out, actually. There were retailers that were saying, yeah, we're not carrying Xbox stuff anymore. Like, we're looking in our order list, like, our distributor's not sending Xbox stuff to us. We are not buying Xbox stuff. We are not stocking it. Now we're clearancing out all of our Xbox games. Now we're getting rid of our Xbox section, or we're shrinking it quite a bit. And this is all of that has led up to them turning this into everything as an Xbox. And you see that with like the ROG Ally and the ROG Ally X, where they are really impressive pieces of tech, right? Like, I've seen them. It seems like people are really happy with them. They are handheld. That's why I say they're not portable computers. They're not laptops, but they're handheld computers. That's what I call them. They look impressive, but I guess I just question if really that's the way of it. Because not to dump on the Steam Deck, right? But I'm going to look this up real quick. Steam Deck sales numbers. Here we go. All right. So the Steam Deck has been out for several years at this point, right? And I feel like a lot of companies now, they're really trying to get into the edge of the handheld computer. Valve, in my opinion, is the first company that has actually done it right. They ended up releasing a pretty adequate. It's not like it's like, just like balls to the wall, like, oh, you can run all your games in 8K at like maximum fidelity and stuff. No, absolutely not. You have to downgrade a lot of your games, like the settings and all that, to get them playable on the Steam Deck. So that's also another thing when people say, oh, yeah, the Steam Deck is great. It plays everything. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Can we just be realistic about it, right? But for the price point, it's fair. Like, it is a pretty affordable price for what you're getting there. The hardware is definitely subsidized because it's, Valve getting it, and they're just getting it out there because they're saying, hey, we just want more people on Steam. For every Steam Deck we sell, that's potentially another Steam customer. That's more Steam income that we're getting because they really make their money off of their software sales and I guess the marketplaces and stuff that they have there. But I'm looking this up because let's even give it like the higher end right there. Let me actually bring this up. Okay, so this is from, here we go. This is from February 26th of this year, right? It took 3 years for the Steam Deck to sell 6 million units, and that's worldwide, right? But that's not game console numbers. That's like pales in comparison. What was it, like the first week that the Switch 2 came out? It sold like 3 or 4 million. Something like that. It sold more in a few days than the Steam Deck sold in like 1 or 2 years there. So that's why it's just like you're going to be really axing your sales numbers on that, because it's not that this market is bad in terms of, debate that there, of course, because with everything happening, but it's not so much that this market is bad for hardware sales. It's just, I don't think the overall greater, like, big mainstream market is really gunning after handheld computers. There's more people who want handheld computers. There's more interest in them than we've ever seen. There's more and more options that are coming out, but it's not doing nearly the same number as like traditional game consoles there, which maybe for Microsoft, maybe that's okay with them, because I guess they kind of want to get out of hardware. It felt like they wanted to get out of hardware for a while now with the original Xbox, even though Phil Spencer has, it's him. He's there. That's it. I even had to like triple check in my head. I'm like, wait, which person is up there? But I guess he's even said that like, no, Xbox is still going to be making hardware. It's just now you can have Xbox on anything. And they've said, hey, look, we're releasing games on PlayStation. We really liked working with Nintendo. We actually really like the Switch 2, and we want to release more on there. We're seeing it here with even some missteps with like, there's a new Halo game coming out, right? And that can be debated too. They're remaking the first Halo game. And like, it looks fun. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm going to pick it up. I've said and I'm not joking. I am planning on picking it up on PS5 because I want to live through the fantasy of being that one kid who, the kid you grew up with or the kid you ran into who swore up and down that they had Halo on the PlayStation 2 or the PlayStation 3, but they couldn't bring it because it wasn't theirs. It was their uncle's, or they lost it, or it was at another family member's house. And they also couldn't show you a picture of it. And they couldn't show you a video either, but you just had to believe them. Like, that's funny to me. So like, from the ironic stance, and also just because of preference, I prefer the PS5 in all honesty. If it's between Xbox Series and PS5, I'm more of a PS5 person. But yeah, they're doing Halo Campaign Evolved, which a lot of people don't like the look of it because it looks like they are trying to stay true to the original, but also remake it, but also respect it. But a lot of people are also saying it looks like a UE5, Unreal Engine 5 Halo transformation, and that's it. And people are annoyed seeing Unreal Engine 5 with everything, where it's like, now it's like every single game is doing that. This game is also called Campaign Evolved, so there's not going to be any multiplayer component on there. I'm kind of surprised they didn't just port MCC to like Switch 2, and maybe not Switch, but I'm surprised they didn't just port MCC to Switch 2 and PS5. Like, that's what I'm surprised with. I'm sure that might be coming down the pipeline, but I saw this put best by Jason Schreier, who had posted about this when it was announced. He said that this is the type of thing you do when you need to reach 30%. And that still goes back to Microsoft is just trying to be, I understand they're a for-profit corporation, they need to make their profits and stuff, but video gaming is not going to be as profitable as you would expect unless you start taking those, unless you start leaning more into like loot boxes and things that just aren't going to go over as well with the public on there. That's where you can really make your buku bucks from there. But that goes into, I haven't even touched up on this. I believe even with everything going on, with all the layoffs, with everything happening, with like Microsoft saying one thing and then doing another, like I've heard reports like Phil Spencer like meets up with teams and he's really impressed with what they're doing, and then like 3 weeks later, boom, there's layoffs that are happening. And then I think the latest thing I read today was he was saying that he promises Forza Motorsport is not dead, it's just indefinitely parked. Stuff like that doesn't really bring about confidence here. Especially when, from what we know, there's been meetings about like the Xbox division where Microsoft is wanting them to increase profits by 30% more. Yeah, I would agree with Jason Schreier on that. Like I'm not saying like they just started working on Halo Campaign Evolved like 2 weeks ago, right? Like, no, absolutely not. This has been a project in the works for a bit. But I would agree with him saying that this is the type of thing you do when you need to reach that extra 30%. You take something that is iconic and then you just remaster it and you're putting it out there, and it's like, hope it's just going to print extra money in that. The vibe of Xbox just feels off. That is my completely non-technical, non-business oriented opinion of it there. But the vibe of Xbox just has not felt right for a while. If you're primarily playing on Xbox, if you're enjoying Game Pass, if you're still paying for it, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying, look, and enjoy it while you can. Actually, that's what I'm saying. Enjoy it while you can, because I don't see this still ongoing the way it is for like indefinitely. And I don't know if Microsoft can really come back from this, because it seems like they're wanting to go a completely different direction here with really kind of everything that they've been doing here. A lot of it is very much, you're not going to own anything and you're going to like it. Keep paying for these subscription services. And I have a big feeling, yeah, we're not going to be doing hardware. Maybe they'll go like the 3DO route, right? And by that I mean 3DO essentially had specifications that you could build your hardware for, and as long as you met those specifications and you like agreed to the licensing terms and such with 3DO, boom, you could have your own 3DO. So Panasonic could make the 3DO. Sanyo could also make a 3DO. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening, where it's like, yes, Microsoft manufactures the Xbox, but guess what? Now, like the ROG Ally X, that's out. And according to Microsoft, since that's an official collaboration, that's also an Xbox. So I'm just going to keep sticking with my older systems. I really enjoy the original Xbox. I still have love for the Xbox 360, especially with all that stuff going on. And I'm just really, for the most part, I'm kind of just fatigued on modern gaming. That's me though. And I know I'm not the only one who's really felt like that. So yeah. I'm gonna skip this one thing here. There's something I was gonna bring up, but let me go ahead and skip it here. But speaking of games, let's go ahead and talk about this. We have a few minutes here. Let's talk about like what games I've been playing here. Now, there's been a few games that, of course, I've been having fun with. I've been enjoying myself with, and two of the games I ended up finishing were actually both of the Duck Detective games. And they were, pretty suitable for this month as well, too. Now, I had never heard of these games before, but I saw them. I decided to give them a spin, and I played both of them here. They were Duck Detective. One of them was The Secret Salami. The other one was The Ghost of Glamping. And I will say, I think my only complaint about these games is that they were a little too short for my liking. They're both incredibly short games, but it feels like playing the first one because it's a mystery game. But the voice acting is phenomenal. I love the characters. I love the art style. I was laughing quite a bit playing these as well too. Even like my girlfriend was on the side like watching these, and she was like, "Oh wow, that's like," she got a few laughs in there, and she was like, "No, this game is cool. This is interesting." But no, I played through both of them, and my thing is, when I played through the first one, by the time I was really getting into it, the game was over. That was my only disappointment, right? But thankfully, when I went to play the second one, I already knew what the format was going to be, so I was already prepared for that. And then I went in there, and I will say, with the way it ended on a pretty big cliffhanger. And I'm just like, no, when's the next one coming out? But then I found out the second one ended up coming out this year. So hopefully next year, the third one will come out. We'll see. But no, those ones have been great. I've also been playing, of course, my Ring Fit Adventure. Been going through that, enjoying myself there. I'm still playing through Astral Chain. Absolutely loving that game. I'm now further than I was before the first time I played it. And I spent less time on it, actually. So I guess I just spent more time like messing around the first time I played it. But no, Astral Chain is really good. It plays quite well on the Switch too. Another game I'm playing right now, replaying, I guess, Necro Barista. It's a really fun game to play. Like it's chill, it's nice. It's fun to play like at night if I'm just like wanting to unwind and get to bed, but like I still kind of want to play something. Necro Barista has been pretty good for that. That has been probably one of the biggest surprises playing on the Switch 2 hardware. It seems silly because like, if you look it up, it's a visual novel, right? And there's nothing really intensive going on. But when I played it originally, because I played it on the original Switch, it is one of the worst optimized games I have played. Like, for the type of game, and I could see why they didn't really bother to optimize it because, like, hey, dude, it's a visual novel. Like, it's not like you need this to run at 60 frames or 120 frames, 8K, like, all the time. But when you're just walking around, like you're just walking around this like open area and the frame rate is jumping all over the place, it's pretty clear that like it's just not optimized. But again, it's a visual novel. There are the visuals there, but you're mostly just reading. Like the important part is the story. The story is the number one aspect of it. However, they did not end up, I guess they had a targeted frame rate on here. They did not have a locked frame rate. Because it's funny, because when I'm playing the game on Switch 2, the game just runs at 60 frames per second, like just constant, just no drops at all. So it's fantastic on there. The other game I started messing around with, because I end up trading in some games, and I picked this up from a local game shop, was Donkey Kong Bonanza. So that is now officially my first physical Switch 2 game. Because I have some other Switch 2 titles, but I have like the upgrades I don't count. One of the games is Welcome Tour. Of course, that was digital only. And then Mario Kart World, where at one point in the future, I would like to get a physical copy, but I'm not prioritizing that because I already have it digitally because I bought the Switch 2 digital bundle that had it on there. So this is my first physical one here. I also don't have any game key cards for the most part. I'm not going to say I'm refusing to buy them, but I'm not going to buy a game key card unless I have a really convincing and compelling reason to. One of them being, for example, let's say if there's a game that's selling for $60, but I find the game key card on sale for like $12, yeah, I'll go ahead and buy it because that's so cheap at that point for a game that I want that I'm going to do that. But no, for the most part, I'm just going to be sticking to, as best I can, just sticking to games on cartridge for the Switch 2. So Bonanza, I end up picking up. That game is cute. It's really fun. It's funny. It's a well done game. I think my only complaint on it is actually honestly the performance on there, because that is one thing I noticed. I've mostly been playing it on my TV. So my TV, it's doing it's outputting at 60 hertz, but I just noticed like playing the game, like the frame rate is not consistent on there. Now, I have seen people, they've said that they didn't notice anything, but the people who didn't notice anything were playing portably. And when they were playing portably, like in handheld mode, they were playing with the variable refresh rate, because variable refresh rate works on the Switch in handheld mode, but when you dock it, it does not have variable refresh rate. So that's one of the downsides there that a lot of people didn't like, especially when, I believe when the Switch 2 was announced, it was announced that it was going to have variable refresh rate, and then Nintendo had to walk that back real quick and say, actually, it's only available in handheld mode, it's not available in docked mode, and we don't have any plans to add it in docked mode. There are people who do say, oh, they're going to add it in later, but I'm like, no, I remember Nintendo said they didn't have plans to add it in there. Like, they said it in corporate speak, though. One of those, like, at this time, we're not planning on adding it in docked mode, so that was disappointing. So I will say, if you're kind of hung up on the performance there, it'd probably be better to just play in handheld mode itself. For the most part, though, even people who have played it who might not notice the differences there as much, when they play it in docked mode, I've heard a lot of people say the game was fine all the way up until the end, and then at the end, the frame rate was not great. But then again, you run into the same thing with people who played it all the way through in handheld mode. They said, I played the ending, it was fine. And again, that's that variable refresh rate right there. Even when you have those really big frame drops, it at least makes it better. It might not fully eliminate it, but it at least makes it better to look at there. Either way, though, the game is still good, at least. I'm just hoping that there could maybe be a little more optimization and patches that are in there, especially for a first-party game like that, especially for a first-party game coming out the first, year of the Switch 2's life cycle. But so far, it is good. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. So, yeah, that's about it for, what I'm playing right now. And that's about it for this episode, I'll say. So either way, that's really all we have here for this episode of Mario's Minute. If you all are going to be doing any trick-or-treating, or I guess, at least in my area, maybe people can fill me in on this. In my area, it's not really trick-or-treating anymore. Ever since 2020, it's been trunk-or-treating. And that's even been just continuously going on, still even years later when things kind of feel like they're getting back to normal, they've been back to normal. It seems like that was one of those changes. You see a lot less trick-or-treating, and most kids are just doing trunk-or-treat, which, that's still free candy, but I don't know, I feel like there's a missing element there as a kid who went around trick-or-treating. At the end of these episodes, though, I do like to pick a keyword or a key phrase, and if you use this keyword or key phrase in a comment on the video upload, I'll know that you made it to the end of this episode. For this, let's go with scare. How about that? I think that'd be pretty apt for the season as well, too. Is there any... Do you like getting scared? Do you hate getting scared? Have there been any costumes that really scared the heck out of you? If you use scare or scared or whatever, if you use scare in some way, do you like scaring people? How about that? How do you feel when you accidentally scare someone? There's sometimes I'll be honest, it's one of those things depending on the person as well too. If I know someone is kind of easily startled and I don't want to scare them, I kind of have to announce my presence. So instead of just being quiet and jumping into a room, I'll come through. I'm just like, hey, I'm here, or hey, I got to ask you something. So yeah, don't really like to startle people like that as much. I used to like it a lot more, but now it's like, I kind of wind back on that a bit because I'm like, yeah, we're not expecting it's not as fun. But yeah, if you use the word scare in a comment on the video upload, I'll know that you made it to the end of this episode. Either way, that is about it for this episode of Mario's Minute. If you enjoyed it, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. But as I always say, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for listening and watching, everyone. And until next month.